friend April that lived there. About 6 months ago that she was actually murdered. She's reaching out to me.
What's she looking at? Is she looking at me?
I still have all this weird stuff happening in my house.
It's just getting worse.
Are you looking for a movie where you have someone looking at a camera who whitters on for about an hour and a half? If the answer is yes, then you may want to check out The Death of April. This one is directed and written by Ruben Rodriguez and it is a very low budget found footage movie. It's listed on IMDb as a 2022 movie, though whilst researching this film I actually found some articles that date back to 2012, which is when this movie is set. So I think that it was actually kind of made around then and has not simply had a proper general release until now. So, The Death of April, a found footage movie. We've seen plenty of them. Now this one is presented in a kind of faux documentary. It purports to be based on a true story, but you know, some of them do say that. And essentially it focuses on a girl called Meagan who essentially moves to the East Coast starts renting an apartment, but while she's there she does these kind of video blogs, but she starts picking up there's some weird stuff kind of going on. You know, doors opening and closing, things moving, all this kind of stuff. And we find out that there was a previous tenant there called April who was murdered, hence the title of the movie. And we obviously suspect that this is the ghost of April, and things get progressively more kind of spooky as the film goes on. And what will happen? Well, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss. Okay, so again, this is a low budget movie. I didn't know the exact budget of this, but there's like no special effects there, despite what the poster may kind of sell you on. There's nothing kind of visually spooky on this movie. It's no special effects, nothing, no CGI, no practical kind of makeup, and it's just a simple things moving around. But is the story any good? Well, let's kind of start. So, what do I think that works in this movie? I have to say, I think the acting is relatively solid. I think pretty much the majority of the cast here do a good job in creating believable roles. I mean, the majority of this footage is the character of Meagan doing some type of video, vlog type thing. A lot of it is talking to the camera, but we do get interactions with her brother and things like this, her friends, her boyfriend and stuff. And we also have interspliced, we have these kind of interviews with family members, police, paranormal investigators, and I've got to say I think the acting is consistently good through the movie. I think there's a reasonable kind of mystery here in regards to what happened before Meagan got there. You know, the death of April. Nothing is ever really kind of fully explained here, but nonetheless I do think it creates an interesting kind of like mystery, like a cold case almost, about what has kind of gone on in this kind of apartment, and is there really kind of paranormal kind of stuff going on, or is there some type of mental breakdown that's happening? Because we actually see evidence of both, and I do kind of quite like it when movies do this. You know, it kind of creates you can decide ultimately for your own things. I mean, obviously it's a film, so we probably are leaning in the regards to something spooky and supernatural going on. But it does kind of show you some like archive footage of Meagan kind of acting weird and things like that, like she's kind of got something going on. So nonetheless, that is kind of there. For a low budget movie that kind of relies on not having anything too kind of flashy, no kind of VFX or anything like that. Obviously it has to rely on story and characters and acting. You know, it gets partly the way there, I feel. Certainly I think the acting is reasonably solid here. I think there's some, the characters are written can be quite realistic to a point. You know, so there's some kind of good stuff here in regard to some of the dramatic elements. What doesn't work, as I said in the intro, this movie is practically a teenage girl looking at a camera, just whittering on for the practically the whole running time, and it's about as interesting as that sounds. So if you can imagine watching someone who you don't know do video vlogs for an hour and a half, that's kind of the movie. So not particularly interesting. This movie has a lot of dialogue. It has a hell of a lot of dialogue. Now, cinephiles out there might be kind of going, well, a lot of dialogue, it means it's all, you know, it's all kind of like good writing and stuff like that. And that can be the case. But this movie is just kind of like a lot of filler conversation, and then we'll get like a door open in the background or something like that. And this girl, she's one of these people, and this is what I mean by somewhat of a realistic example of a character who just keeps talking. And we all know someone who's like it. This girl just talks and talks and talks. And it's about as fun as that sounds. It is. It's kind of what it is. Yes, we have the kind of it's interspersed with a few other kind of shots and things like this. It is, you know, we have the kind of the interviews and the kind of the faux documentary. We do get a bit of interaction with people, but we needed to have a little bit more going on in regards to maybe other locations, things happening that are more told visually rather than just kind of like, you know, this character of Meagan just kind of just spewing dialogue constantly. And I get the impression that the director here was just like, just say stuff, you know, just kind of say, blather around, kind of saying, you know, incidental to kind of dialogue and things like this, that will drop in a few kind of plot points. Whew, it was, it's kind of about as fun as watching someone's holiday video for an hour and a half. Hey, do you want to watch my holiday video? No, I don't want to. Thank you very much. You know, like I said, the acting is fine. I'll give it that. But the actual plot, there's just not much there. We don't really get any answers, as I've said. And I also have to say there's some elements here that I felt were poorly explained. Let me give you some examples. We are told at the beginning of the movie that Meagan didn't even move out when she went to university, you know. So we don't really know why she's moving out to this place. I mean, we never really see her do anything other than just kind of do these video vlogs. We never really see her do any work or anything like that. Not quite sure what she's actually doing there. It just seems to be like, oh, she's in this apartment for some reason, and all she ever seems to do is talk about these video vlogs, like, and where are these going? You know, is it? Then she mentions it's for her family or something, to send back to her family. Whew, I mean, that is some. Cheers. Thanks for that video, love. I've definitely watched it. So you know, it's. Why she's there, who knows? It doesn't really do a good job of explaining why she's there, and it could have done. But I mean, it just kind of see some, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Oh, you know, I'm at work. This is happening while I'm at work, or something like this. You know, and then she finds out that there's been a murder in her apartment where the perpetrator was not caught 6 months ago. Single girl living in an apartment where there was someone murdered 6 months ago and they haven't caught anyone. Hands up, how many kind of single women do you think would stay in that apartment? You know. And then the spooky stuff starts to happen. You'd be out of there. Oh boy. And then the climax. Do we get a good climax? Something happens. Is it particularly visually interesting? Not really. It's pretty mundane for a kind of a horror film. Yes, something violent happens, but it is kind of like, oh, that is it? That is what we've been waiting for? Oh boy. This is one of those examples, I feel, that is a good short film, perhaps, maybe. 20-minute segment of an anthology, perhaps. Not a feature-length movie. And they needed to have, they wanted to have it, maybe you could have done it in a feature-length movie, but you needed to have things other than this character of Meagan just giving verbal diarrhea at the screen for an hour and a half. My ears were bleeding. I mean, you needed to have her take the camera out, take it to the library, do research or something. Let's go, let's have a few spooky kind of like, you know, shots in the woods or something, you know, something's going on. She's investigating. No, none of that. None of that. It's just kind of like, you know, that's just her talking to the camera and a few scenes where, you know, she's talking to a few friends that are around. Yeah, it's a missed opportunity, this one. This one was, I have to say, a little bit of a dull watch. I'll give it props for the acting and the character work, even though I think some of the kind of like this, I say, why isn't she moving out? Some of the more the plot-driven kind of character work wasn't so good. Although I do think some of the interactions and personal kind of like dialogue, like between her and her brother, for example, was stronger. But that's not why I'm watching this film. That's not why I'm watching this film. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. It was a little bit of a dull watch, to be honest with you. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time.